Hello, and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And this is Campbell Florence.
And today we're talking about the Twilight Zone finale, The Blurry Man. Meg will also be joining us later to share her thoughts on the episode, but we wanted to talk about it first. We woke up early and watched it on Thursday when it aired. This is the episode with Seth Rogen and Zazie Beetz, and it was written by Alex Rubens and directed by Simon Kinberg. So this is a very meta episode, which means it's, sort of an episode about itself and self-reflective, and it starts off with this plot of a writer, and we think this is going to be the episode that what he's writing is coming true, but then we find out they're on the set of the Twilight Zone. What did you think when that happened, Campbell?
I didn't really know what to think. I was confused.
Yeah, well, it is kind of confusing, and that's been some other people's response too. I've seen. It's like, wait, what's happening? I thought it was really funny though, and clever. And Jordan Peele was playing himself, and they were talking about this narration, and then she rewrites it, but it's not something she wrote that appears on the cue cards. It's about the blurry man who's showing up in the background of all of these episodes. And now we haven't done this yet, but we want to go back and see if this is true, that there really is a frame or a shot where a figure appears in the background of the first 9 episodes. I don't know. I mean, they show it on a monitor within this episode, but I don't know if that's real or not. But very shortly after that started happening and she was getting pursued by the blurry man, Campbell said,
I'm pretty sure that's Rod Serling.
So he totally called it. It was awesome. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, what does this mean and everything? But it was, and that was a nice twist. And, the whole thing was about how Rod Serling really elevated the genre and the storytelling of horror and psychological thriller and all of these things that we maybe we look at or experience in day to day, but helping us to look at it in a new way with new eyes, or just like that, using that phrase of elevated horror and bringing it to another group of people who maybe didn't necessarily think that the genre was for them. Any thoughts or observations from the episode? What sets did you like to see her run through, or filming parts?
I really like the Wonderkin sets.
Yeah, so that was the one with Jacob Tremblay running for president. That was cool. Anything else?
I liked what was it called? Yeah, Not All Men set.
Oh yeah. Yep. So it was awesome to see sort of all of these moments from the series coming into play there at the last in the last episode, and her confronting her own thoughts about it. Jordan Peele playing himself, that was hilarious, as I mentioned, and then seeing Rod Serling, it was so amazing and wonderful. Oh, and they of course, I'm sure Meg will talk about this, but they showed the clip of the episode. I can't think of what it's called now, but the guy who all he wants to do is read, and then his glasses break, and then he can't read, and it was very nostalgic. So let's listen to Meg's thoughts on the episode.
Hey guys, so I'm just going to cut to the chase right away. I'm not going to leave you in suspense and tell you that I give this episode 10 Twilight Zone doors out of 10, and it was probably my favorite episode of the season. I'm excited to hear what Kelly thinks and also what you guys think. It was so meta. It started out, and I think really what helped too was the way they advertised it last week, was they made it seem like it was going to be this Seth Rogen episode. And it starts out, and it's just like so no, I don't want to say typical, but it just felt like a very comfortable sort of regular episode of the Twilight Zone. And then they pull this 180 on us, and it was so delightful, and it really like struck at the heart of what the Twilight Zone is all about. And I absolutely love that we got to see more Jordan Peele. I love that he added this little thing where he kept eating popcorn. And it makes me wonder if that's like an in-joke or if Jordan Peele eats a lot of popcorn in real life. But I really like that. I love that we all of a sudden are like, we pull back and we get to sort of see behind the curtain, fictionally still, of course, but it was so cool. And it was such a neat turn, and it really just sort of, it was the perfect balance of everything. It was the perfect balance of this twist right at the beginning. It was this balance of kind of making fun of the Twilight Zone a little bit, maybe poking fun at it, but in a really lighthearted and loving way. What else? Well, my dream job is to write for the Twilight Zone, so I wanted to be her. I wanted to be Sophie. And also, this idea that she, as a little girl, was watching the Twilight Zone, and I love they show the famous Burgess Meredith episode at the library. I should say, at the bank and the library. And she wonders where the Twilight Zone is. And I was that same little girl, and so that really resonated with me, and I think that gave me chills at the end of this episode. It was just so delightful in every way. I was scared. They did a really good job of making Blurry Man scary, and it was funny, and it encompassed everything I love about the Twilight Zone. The only thing that I could say that I was kind of like about is I hoped maybe Blurry Man was Rod Serling, but I kept kind of going back in my mind like, oh, they probably wouldn't do that. And when it was him, I at first kind of had that feeling of like, oh, is this weird? And obviously they did the best they could. I mean, it's not him, obviously, it's computer generated. But the fact that his family are producers on the show kind of helps me feel a little better about it and feel like it's cool and it's good. And also, I think Rod Serling, if I can be as bold enough to speak on his sort of what he might like, I feel like he would really think that's cool. And it really is sort of like this meta-ness of the Twilight Zone and what the sort of ideals that he was trying to outline in the first show. And I don't know, it really touched me. I really liked seeing the writer's process as a writer, even before I knew that this was a meta episode and I thought it was going to be starring Seth Rogen. When they showed him being a writer, I really appreciated sort of how they depicted that. I thought that was funny and sort of accurate. And then her too, and sort of her being encased in this Twilight Zone world, and it's something she was as a child, but then this whole idea, and I think that Jordan Peele's been kind of saying his piece about it, and I think he's been saying his piece most of all through his work, but this idea that if we give up these so to speak childish notions, that we can sort of close our mind instead of open our mind. And I don't know, it gave me chills at the end. I love how they use the original theme music, and they also showed the credits at the end that were original, like the first show. And so there's those little touches. I definitely want to rewatch this episode again. It was so fun, and I just think it was such a great ending episode for this season. I cannot wait for more episodes of the Twilight Zone. I will be counting down the days.
Obviously, I loved it. I thought it was so good. Now, we watched a horror movie. Well, you didn't watch the entire thing, Campbell, but you watched part of it with me last week. And it was new on Netflix, and it's called The Perfection. And we can't give anything away because if I give any spoiler away or tell you anything, if you haven't seen it, it'll sort of give everything away. So let's just say there are some amazingly gross scenes, but it's a good movie. Keep watching. It goes places you might not expect, and I really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure if I would, but it kept surprising me. Campbell, do you have any thoughts without giving anything plot away of The Perfection?
No.
I don't think this is, I think I can say this one thing, and it's not, I mean, it's a plot point, but it's not a spoiler. The real horror is being stuck in a foreign country on a bus and you have diarrhea. I can say that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So that is not really giving anything away specifically, but I mean, that, besides all the rest of the stuff that's going on in that movie, that would be a truly horrific moment. So, if you had to rank the perfection of what you saw of it, Campbell, what would you rank it? And let's use a scale of bows, like for the instrument, to play the instrument. How many do you give the perfection?
I give it about 9.
Yeah, I give it a 9 as well. I thought it was pretty solid. And like I said, we can't even talk about it without spoiling it. And since it's so new, I don't want to accidentally spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched it. So check that out on Netflix. And until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
See you in the horror section.